Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar about the proposed new stabling facility at Annandale, Dumfries and Galloway. My name is Steve and I'm an engagement executive at HS2. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us today. As you'll understand, we're unable to hold large information events at the moment due to COVID-19, so we hope this webinar will help to inform you about the proposals in your area and the design refinement consultation we have launched. It will also give you an opportunity to ask any general questions you may have. During the webinar, you will hear from our engagement manager for your area. We'll then move on to a question and answer session where we'll be joined by a team of specialists who will answer as many of your questions as time permits. Please note that we're only able to answer general questions on the plans. Any questions relating to your individual circumstances should be raised via our help desk, who will be able to provide you with the specific advice you need. If a lot of questions come in around the same topic, we'll try to group these together and answer as one to avoid repeating answers. If we do run out of time to answer questions and you feel you have not had your question answered, again, we would ask that you contact our help desk. Before I hand over to my colleague Ben, I wanted to share some technical information. We don't anticipate any technical issues during our event, but I want to provide some advice in case you experience any connection issues. If your feed freezes, wait for about 10 seconds as it will most likely correct itself. If it doesn't, use the leave button to exit the call and rejoin using the event link. You'll be able to use the toggle at the bottom of your screen to rewind back to where you left the event. You can also use this functionality at any point during the call should you need to pause for any reason. If there is a freeze or you do disconnect and are unable to rejoin due to a wider Microsoft or IT issue, we'll email you with any information. There's a comment function for participating in the Q&A session, which you should be able to find at the top right of your screen. My colleague Stephen will be keeping an eye on the questions that come through as we go, and then during the Q&A, he'll ask the team here to answer as many as them as we've got time to get through. Remember though, we'll only answer general questions. Anything relating to your individual circumstances should be raised via our help desk, and I'll provide contact details for this at the end of the call. I'll now hand over to our next speaker, Ben, who will talk through HS2's proposals for the Annandale stabling facility. Ben, over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll be discussing what High Speed 2 is and where it goes, what the Annandale depot proposals are and why they are proposed where they are. I will also look at what the Western Leg Design Refinement Consultation is and how you can get involved. We recommend that you do read the consultation document, which provides more detail on the proposals themselves. This can be found by following the links on www.hs2.org.uk/phase 2B. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to understand these proposals, and we hope that this format achieves this. So let's start at the beginning and look at what High Speed 2 is. High Speed 2, or HS2, is a planned new high-speed rail network for the UK, which has been developed on behalf of the UK government by a company called High Speed 2 Limited, which I work for. HS2 will be a set of brand new tracks which will also have connections to the existing rail network. This means that HS2 services will be able to run on the new network and then onto the existing network, which provides improved connectivity and capacity across the national rail network. This map on your screen now shows the proposed HS2 network in full. As you can see, HS2 is split into 3 different phases. Phase 1 of the project, shown in dark blue, links London with Birmingham and is already under construction. Phase 2A of the project, which is shown in purple on the map, is proposed to link the West Midlands with the West Coast Main Line at Crewe. Legislation for this phase of the project is currently making its way through the UK Parliament. In July 2017, the UK government confirmed the route of Phase 2B of HS2. This includes an eastern leg and a western leg, both of which are shown in orange on the map. The eastern leg runs north from Birmingham to Leeds and connects to the existing rail network just outside of York. The western leg runs from Crewe towards Manchester and connects to the West Coast Main Line near Wigan. Many of these HS2 services will continue via the existing network to serve routes further north, shown in light blue on the map. For example, services to Glasgow, Edinburgh, Motherwell, Lockerbie and Carlisle will all benefit from shorter journey times as a result of HS2. HS2 also provides the opportunity for an increased number of services to North Scotland and North West England. This could see 2 400-metre trains run from HS2's Euston station each hour and split at Carlisle into two 200-metre trains to serve Glasgow and Edinburgh. HS2 trains will also be able to serve Scotland from Birmingham. For more information on the benefits that services to Scotland and elsewhere will experience as a result of HS2, visit www.hs2.org.uk/where. The new HS2 trains serving Scotland and the northwest of England will need overnight stabling and light maintenance facilities near to where they finish and start service. It would not be operationally efficient for these trains to run empty to the nearest HS2 depot at Crewe, which is approximately 150 miles away as the crow flies, and then back again in time for the first morning service. So we looked at several sites in between Glasgow, Edinburgh and Carlisle for a suitable site for this facility. In light of the need for the network to operate efficiently and effectively, the UK Minister of State for Transport is minded to include a train stabling facility at Annandale in Dumfries and Galloway into the Phase 2B design. I will discuss what a train stabling facility is shortly, but first let's establish where this proposed facility is located. As you can see, the site of these proposals is between Lockerbie and Carlisle, located very near to the border between England and Scotland. The next smaller scale map shows the location of the proposals to be between Kirkpatrick, Fleming and Gretna Green. This image shows a proposed depot site and its layout. The site sits to the north of the A74M and is immediately adjacent to the West Coast Main Line on the southern side. This proposed site is approximately 80 hectares in size. Its width is approximately 400 metres at its widest, and it is approximately 3.15 kilometres in length. If you wish to have a closer look at this image, it is shown on page 43 of the consultation document that discusses these proposals. Again, this can be found by following the links on www.hs2.org.uk/phase 2B. The Annandale depot would stable trains overnight, allowing the trains to be cleaned, some servicing, inspection and maintenance to be carried out, and would provide some storage for equipment spares. It would also provide training and meeting facilities for the staff running the railway. Its physical features would include 14 stabling sides, which could each accommodate two 200-metre trains overnight, as well as other smaller buildings. The depot would also be directly connected to the West Coast Main Line via two connections, which would point north and south and would allow trains to enter and leave in quick succession. The facility would create around 100 permanent jobs, both skilled and unskilled. Some parts of the local road network may need to be modified to accommodate it, including around the proposed facility entrance on the B7076. There may also be potential traffic impacts both during the construction and operation periods, although these are expected to be low. A number of potential sites that could meet this need were considered and graded according to their suitability. This included looking at existing stabling facilities with spare capacity or the potential to upgrade, as well as vacant brownfield and greenfield sites. None were identified that were suitable for this purpose. A site that could perform this function that is needed has to be close to the existing railway, be relatively flat, be accessible to the workforce and local transport network, accommodate reasonable maintenance needs, and have enough space to accommodate the expected number of trains. These are key factors that make this location the most suitable for the proposed depot. More information about this depot itself, why there is a need for it, and why this particular site was chosen can be found on page 44 of the consultation document. The Western Leg design refinement consultation that has been launched by the UK Minister of State for Transport is asking for people's views on 4 proposed changes to the Western Leg of Phase 2B of the High Speed 2 project, including this proposed depot. Please note that I will not be discussing the other proposed changes that are being consulted upon during this webinar. For more information on the 3 other changes, please visit www.hs2.org.uk/phase 2B. As the name suggests, this consultation only concerns the western leg of Phase 2B. The eastern leg may be subject to future design work and/or consultation, and the final design and phasing of both the western leg and the eastern leg will be confirmed as part of an integrated rail plan, which is expected to be published later this year. So we're keen to hear your views on this question that the consultation asks. This consultation asks only one question about this proposal, and that question is, what are your comments about the proposed train stabling facility at Annandale? Although the changes only affect specific sections of the proposed HS2 Phase 2B route, everybody is welcome to respond. The consultation will close at 11:45 on the 11th of December. Please ensure that you send your response by this date. For more information about these proposals and the consultation, including how to respond, please visit www.hs2.org.uk/Phase 2B. All feedback from the consultation will be considered as part of the Minister of State's decision over whether to include these changes in the design of the route for Phase 2B before we deposit the hybrid bill. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Ben. We will now move on to some questions. Firstly, I'd like to introduce our panel of experts. Today we have joining us Leah from our environment team and David from our engineering team. Mig, who works with HS2 to integrate our project with Network Rail, Graham, who is our lead for depots, and Matt, who is from the Department for Transport's policy team. Steve mentioned earlier we will answer as many questions as possible given the time we have. First question that's been asked is, which I will aim in Matt's direction as it's a Department for Transport question. If the Minister is minded to have the depot at Gretna, what is the point of this consultation?
Hi there, and thanks for the question. So, as Ben spoke through earlier, at the moment we're at a consultation stage, and we're keen to hear people's views, which will feed into the Minister's considerations towards making a decision on this.
Thank you. There aren't any other questions at the moment, but let us wait to see, wait for people to digest the presentation. Let me ask another question that has come in that I will ask Mig to comment on, which is, why did we select this location rather than any of the other potential locations?
Thanks, Steve, for the question. It's quite a complex question, and we spent quite a long time trying to answer the right location for our recommendation. Essentially, there isn't enough capacity in available depots that exist today north of Carlisle. The train service augments after Phase 2B, adding a lot more trains. So we originally considered existing depots and found that they weren't sufficient. We started by considering every brownfield site around the Carlisle area, around Glasgow, around Edinburgh, and everywhere in between. And that was our first preference. And unfortunately, as the consultation says, we didn't find any that were suitable, which led us to then start investigating greenfield sites. And this came out as our recommendation on balance for environmental and cost impacts, both through construction and operation. We felt this was the best option that we had. I hope that goes some way to answering your question.
Thank you. There was a related question, which I think you probably covered, but I'll ask it, which is whether the site at Cargo Rig, the large marshalling yard there, had been rejected, why that had been rejected.
I'm not able to answer that right now, but if you give me a few minutes, I will see whether I can look that up.
Thank you. I will come back to you on that then. Question for David from our engineering team. Had a couple of questions in asking about timeframes, the timeframe to build a depot and the current programme for design and construction. Can you answer those, please?
Yeah. Okay, so the design we are to some extent carrying on with now to sort of flesh out what we have currently. Our current assumption is we get royal assent as part of the hybrid bill around sort of 2024. and then there will be a period of advanced works in that time combined with some design work, and we'd be looking to undertake some construction potentially after that date around sort of 2026. And then we'd be sort of looking to conclude work around 2031, ready for operations after a 2-year testing commissioning phase. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, David. That's very useful. Thank you. I think moving on now, question that has been asked: what arrangements are being made to compensate those with commercial interests in the land? I think I shall answer that question, which is that we are looking to have conversations to reach an agreement around that very issue with each of the owners of the land. We wrote to everybody who has an interest in each of the land parcels that are affected by the site a couple of weeks ago, and are in the process of having conversations with each of them. Ben, question that has come in: have the landowners already been consulted? I think that's sort of related to the one that I've just answered, but if you can address that one.
So we have sent out letters inviting conversations to those individuals and parties who own land in the area that the proposals cover, and we are prioritising having conversations with those landowners, but everyone is welcome to join the consultation. We consider all the views that are provided to us. So we have sent out correspondences to a wider catchment of local addresses as well, to try and notify local residents and businesses of the proposals themselves, and also mention the consultation. So the consultation is for everyone. But we have sent certain different correspondences to those who we believe own property in the area to have conversations with them as well. I think that answers the question, I hope.
Thank you very much, Ben. A question that I will ask Graham to answer in terms of the staffing of the project, of the depot. Have you evaluated the number of jobs this will bring to the area, and what accommodation will be required locally?
Thank you for the question. What we've been through is we've evaluated the workload for the depot, which has resulted in the number of staff that we require. And I think, as mentioned earlier, that is in the region of 100 staff. The majority of those, probably around about 65%, will be for cleaning and servicing. From my area, we haven't done any analysis with regard to accommodation that would be required in the area. I don't know if any of the colleagues could answer that section. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much. I think at this stage of the project, we'd be, in terms of the construction of the project, that would be an issue that would be considered further down the road. And clearly, in terms of local employment opportunities, those would be just part of any major new employer moving into an area, and how that affects jobs in any given area. Question that I think would be for probably for Matt. You mentioned a bill for the UK Parliament, but the operations require planning permission, which is a devolved matter. Have you considered this?
So thank you for the question, and yeah, that is something that we are working through at the moment. So we do intend to include the powers to build and operate the Annandale facility in the hybrid bill, which we will submit to the UK Parliament. That said, engagement with the Scottish Government is kind of something we're doing on an ongoing basis. It's not yet finalised, but we will. That is something we're considering.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt, for that. Question for Graham: are you not able to stack above existing depots, which I think I'm taking to mean to almost build a first floor sitting above a depot sitting at ground level in order to accommodate extra trains there?
With regard to stacking trains, if you mean to stable one on top of the other, that's something that we haven't looked at. I think that would probably incur a significant amount of additional costs. So at the moment, what we've got is there's 14 stabling rows with 28 berths on one level. So back to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Graham. Another question about how the railway works, basically, which I'll ask Mig to address, please. Why not also build rail sidings immediately after stations to reduce shunting operations and maximise frequency of commercial services? So almost a succession of mini depots, I guess, around the rail network.
That is a very good question, and it's one that we have to balance quite carefully. Of course, if you have a stabling facility very close to your terminating station, there is less empty coach movement, less wasted time, if you like, with an empty train travelling to a depot. But of course, that stabling facility requires land in areas of population, which is more difficult and has higher environmental impact. We did consider a number of sort of smaller satellite depots, but on balance, this becomes more inefficient to operate and staff. So it's a very good question, but on balance, we believe having the one depot near Annandale is on balance better. Also using Polmadie depot, the existing depot near to Glasgow, and potentially some space in Craigentinny as well. So there's a balance there between placing depot facilities or rolling stock stabling facilities or sidings in the centre of towns near terminating stations, or slightly further away where space impacts on less on those towns. I hope that goes some way to answering the question.
Great, thank you very much, Meg. A question about the environmental impact, which I'll ask Leah, if I may. What will be the environmental impact of this site for the local community, i.e. noise from construction, noise whilst operational, noise from works at the site, and what impact there will be on the local wildlife?
Hi, thank you for your question. So we haven't yet started the surveys on the land to understand from where in the area it might be visible from and heard from, but we'll be doing those surveys over the next few months and then developing the next stage of the design with an assessment of then where it will be visible and heard from. We will plan mitigation. This is the same as how we've proceeded in developing the new railway line elements of HS2. Noise and visual impacts will be reported through the environmental statement alongside proposals for mitigation, and the ES will be deposited alongside the hybrid bill into Parliament. A complete environmental assessment of the site will be undertaken. We will assess the scheme for all impacts, including water resources and flood risk, landscape and visual, ecology, historic environment, and where impacts are anticipated, we'll ensure that they're adequately mitigated. And through this assessment process, we'll also consult with multiple stakeholders, including Scottish Natural Heritage, Scottish Environment Protection Agency, Historic Scotland, and Dumfries and Galloway Council.
Thank you very much, Leah. Ben, a question for you, I think. Is the local authority aware of this proposal and this consultation?
Yeah, it'll be a quick answer to that question. It's yes. We have been talking to the local authority for some time now about the proposals and obviously gathering their information. Given that this is a consultation, we've been careful to release information at a particular time to ensure that it is a fair and balanced consultation by giving everyone, all of our consultees, the same chance to absorb the information and come back to us. So we have been engaging with the local authority before the launch of the consultation earlier this month.
Great. OK, thank you very much. I think another question which you might be well placed to answer around what compensation packages are available for businesses affected by the proximity of the stabling yard. Can you help a bit there?
Yeah, so again, as we mentioned earlier, we are keen to talk to businesses in the local area, obviously along with residents as well. And I think it's probably important to sort of emphasise that while we do have a consultation that runs until the 11th of December, and obviously any responses that are received within that consultation will be considered as part of the consultation and then sort of packaged and provided as advice to the UK Minister of State for Transport. Irrespective of that consultation, we do want to have conversations as well with all local residents and businesses in the area that may be affected by this. First of all, to understand their current situation and also to understand any impacts that these proposals may bring. Obviously, this is a consultation and there may be changes made as a result of it. So at this point, we would be looking to speak with those businesses and understand what potential impacts they may be. We would encourage those businesses to feed back to the consultation, discussing their own circumstances and reporting back what those impacts may be as far as the current design is concerned. And then, of course, we do have to take this one step at a time and wait for any outcomes of the consultation, as I say, from the UK Minister of State for Transport. And at that point, that would be appropriate to discuss any revised design. So this is it's called an iterative design process. It essentially means that we do come up with a form of design, publish it, potentially change it. So at each step of the way, we would be looking to have those conversations with local businesses. And if it then comes to it, further down the line, once the plans are submitted to Parliament and then receive royal assent, that would be an appropriate point to have a more detailed conversation about any compensation that may be available. But at this current point, we're looking to have conversations to understand what those impacts are and perhaps make any tweaks to our design to try and accommodate those impacts wherever reasonable and proportionate.
OK, thank you very much, Ben. We've got one final question to ask, so I'll ask that question and clearly wait for the answer. And then if there aren't any other questions, then we'll move to the conclusion of this webinar. So a last call for further questions for anyone who's got any pressing issues. So it's a question about the railway further south around Birmingham, which I'll ask Mig to answer. And it is Birmingham Curzon Street will be a terminating station, but sadly not a running line via the disused Duddleston Viaduct. Does this affect maintenance operations at depots because of the positioning of trains?
Thanks for that question, and I might be useful for Graham to also feed into this as our depot's expert. But essentially, we have a stabling facility at Washwood Heath in Birmingham, which stables the majority of trains travelling between Birmingham and London, and also most of the trains that would terminate at Birmingham in the evening. Our next rolling stock depot is proposed to be just north of Crewe, which again is a very useful position in between for stabling trains that may have travelled to Liverpool or Manchester or Preston. However, north of there isn't the depot capacity in existing depots for the level of service that we'd be proposing to run in the future. Which is why we end up with a proposal near Carlisle to do this. So I don't believe that any changes at Birmingham would affect this proposal.
Thank you very much, Meg, for that. We have another question, which I will ask Matt from the Department for Transport to answer, as it relates to how the UK government and the Scottish government and devolved issues relate to each other. So the question is, you say that the UK Parliament Minister for Transport will decide the outcome of this consultation. However, transport is also a devolved responsibility. So what consultation has been progressed with the Scottish government? Matt, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. There is ongoing engagement with the Scottish Government. There's an HS2 and Scottish Government working group which meets regularly, and the Scottish Government has been involved in this process up to now, and they'll continue to be involved, although ultimately, as you say, the decision will be taken by the UK Minister for Transport.
Thank you. Ask one last question, which is of Leah from our environment team. What is HS2's climate mitigation following the typhoon in Japan that destroyed Shinkansen rolling stock?
Hi, I will need to consult with our climate technical team in order to get back, so I will get back to this question.
Fine. Oh, okay. So if we can take a note of that query, then we will get back to the person who asked that question. Mig, there was the question earlier about cargo rig and the site there, and you've done some work and can answer that question. Hello, Mig.
Hi there. So I was just waiting for the camera. Yes, so apologies for the delay in answering that. We've referred to these areas as different names, so I just wanted to double check that I was going to answer the question correctly. I think by cargo, the question is referring to the Kingmore Yard, Network Rail's existing freight yard just north of Carlisle. We spent quite a lot of time looking at that area and working with Network Rail to see which parts of that facility were essential for the ongoing freight operation of that yard and the freight industry, and which areas could be repurposed as a potential rolling stock facility for HS2. Following quite a lot of work on that, we concluded that the space was not going to be sufficient for all of the HS2 trains that would need to use that area to offer the increase in services that HS2 Phase 2B would bring. So unfortunately that site wasn't large enough. On the other site near Rig, I think that's the Ministry of Defence site adjacent to the River Esk. We did also look at that site, and operationally we felt that needed to be discounted. I believe there was also some quite significant environmental concerns with using that area as well. So both of those sites were investigated, but unfortunately were not felt to be appropriate on balance. I hope that goes some way to answering that question.
Thanks very much, Meg. Steve?
Sorry for the delay there, everybody. I had problems unmuting my microphone. Well, thank you for everyone's questions, and I hope that you found today's webinar useful. All the information that we've talked about today can be found on HS2's website at www.hs2.org.uk/phase 2B. If you have any further questions or need any help accessing the information, please contact our help desk, and the number for them is 08081 434 434. That's 08081 434 434. You can also contact us by Minicom on 08081 456 472 or by email at hs2enquiries@hs2.org.uk, hs2enquiries@hs2.org.uk, or you can visit our website, which is www.hs2.org.uk. Thank you once again, stay safe, and we hope you enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.